What's up, guys? How's it going? This video, I want to talk about my top 10 game series I'd like to see come back. These are series that start off strong, that haven't been out for a while. Last game hasn't come out for a while and some time, and there's a lot of them out there, and this is just my top 10. I know I'm missing some, so please leave a comment below. Let me know what I missed. Let me know what your top 10 are, or let me know what games you think that should come back. But let's get started. Let's just dive right into it, guys. We'll start with number 10. Thanks. All right, so number 10, this is a game that came out in 1999. It is Syphon Filter. I loved this series when it first came out. The third-person stealth element of it all, there was some puzzle elements in the game as well. Very unique for gameplay back in the day, and really kind of started it all with this particular genre of games. Later on, you get like Rainbow Six and other ones that were kind of stealth as well. But this one, to me, is a great franchise, great series. The last one that came out was for the PSP. That was Logan's Shadow. And the one before that was also for the PSP. So it's been some time since we've seen a Syphon Filter. I would love to see them bring this series back. I think it would look amazing on the PS5. How cool would that be? So that'd be number 10 on my list, Syphon Filter. Number 9 on my list is a classic beat 'em up. It is Final Fight. Came out in 1989 in the arcades, of course, by Capcom. Ported to a whole bunch of different home consoles, including the Super Nintendo. Not only got Final Fight 1, but they also got Final Fight Guy, Final Fight 2 and 3. That's were exclusive to Super Nintendo. Sega CD port, Final Fight CD is still my favorite home port of the game. If you haven't played it, the music's amazing. It plays really well. But Final Fight, not obviously the very first beat 'em up to come out, but it was one that really, when you think beat 'em ups, you think the classic beat 'em ups, and Final Fight has to come to mind. And there were a handful of games that came out in the series. The last one actually to hit the market was back in 2006 called Streetwise. That game itself isn't very good, unfortunately. It was a 3D beat 'em up. It spun off from the traditional 2D beat 'em up that we were used to seeing in Final Fight, got terrible reviews, and then maybe that's why Capcom hasn't released Final Fight in a while. And then there was Final Fight Revenge, which I think is one of the worst Final Fight games that came out. That was a Saturn exclusive. I believe it only came out in Japan. And that was actually a fighter. It wasn't a beat 'em up. They turned it into like a 3D fighter, almost like Virtua Fighter. And it got terrible reviews as well. So the last two Final Fights that hit the market for the consoles were not really greatly rated. Maybe that's why it kind of put a sour mouth taste. So perhaps it put a sour taste in Capcom's mouth when it came to releasing Final Fight games. But so if Sega can bring back Streets of Rage 4 recently, right? And that was it's a pretty good beat 'em up. I really feel like Capcom can bring back Final Fight series, and it would look amazing. If you could play online as well, it would be fantastic. So Sega, if you're listening, please bring back Final Fight series. Number 8 on my list is the Wario Land series. This is a spin-off, of course, from the Mario series of the platformers that we're used to seeing with Mario. Wario Land is different. Wario would handle a little different than Mario, right? He had the run, he'd kind of boost, he had different upgrades. Wario Land, of course, for the Virtual Boy, but it didn't start there. It started in 1994 for the Game Boy. And then you seem to see, Wario Land really was for primarily home, like handhelds, although the last release was for the Wii. It came out in 2008. It was called Wario Land Shake It. It's got kind of some cool shell-shaded graphics in it. It was really cool. You use the controller for a lot of times with the movement. And it was a decent platformer, but that was 13 years ago. It's been some time since we've seen a new Wario Land game, and the first time we actually saw Wario was actually in 6 Golden Coins as Mario Land 2 for the Game Boy, and that's one of my favorite Mario games for the original Game Boy. So I've, Wario himself is kind of near dear to me. I love the character. I think it's really cool. We've seen him in other games, of course, but his own Wario Land game, Nintendo, bring him back. Number 7 on my list is another classic PlayStation 1 game, Twisted Metal. Came out in 1995. This is like a destruction derby kind of. You destroy anything you see in your path. You have different characters. The graphics at the time, 3D graphics, were really cool. Played really well. Although looking back on the PlayStation 1 graphics now, they've kind of aged. But back then, it was pretty mind blowing. And the last one we saw was actually Twisted Metal Black. It was a remake. Came out for the PlayStation 4. I believe that came out back in 2015. So it's been 6 years since we've seen that. But the original, I guess the last original one that we saw was going back to 2012 for the PlayStation 3. They tried to revive the series Twisted Metal. That game's pretty decent, but unfortunately we haven't seen one really since 2015, Black, with the remake. It's been some time. Awesome, would be awesome to see on the PlayStation 5. I think it would look incredible, especially in VR. I'm big into VR now. I picked up a PlayStation VR headset recently. That would be a really fun game to play in VR. So Twisted Metal would be great to see back. Number 6 on my list is classic Sega beat 'em up Golden Axe. This is another game kind of like Final Fight. Was in the arcades. Also came out in '89, same year as Final Fight. This game obviously was ported to the Genesis/Mega Drive. There were actually technically 3 of them came out for that system platform. In Japan, it had all 3 of them came out for cartridges, although Golden Axe 3 was only on the Sega Channel here in North America. Great series. It kind of, it's a unique beat 'em up, kind of considered one of the first slashers because you had different weapons. And just really a lot of fun. I love the theme. I love the fantasy element of it. It kind of reminds me of Game of Thrones / Lord of the Rings / Dungeons and Dragons kind of style theme, which I'm a huge fan of. So love the Golden Axe theme series. Golden Axe Warriors was ported to the Sega Master System, which is actually a unique, if you haven't played it, it's a unique adventure game. It was essentially a Zelda clone. If you have a Sega Master System, I would encourage you guys to check it out. It's pretty hard to find, pretty expensive, unfortunately. But the last Golden Axe game that came out was back in 2008. It was called Beast Rider, and it came out for the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360. It was the first in the series that was a 3D kind of beat 'em up, kind of like I think God of War style gameplay. And unfortunately, critics did not like it at all. It wasn't very highly rated. Maybe that's why they haven't done one since. But that was almost 13 years ago that game was released. I think it's time for Sega, kind of like Streets of Rage. If you can bring it back, please bring it back. Number 5 on my list is a game that came out in 1992 for the Super Nintendo, Mario Paint. And you're probably thinking to yourself, John, Mario Paint just came out one game, right? It's not a series. Well, technically, it is a series because in 1999, with the Nintendo 64 disc drive in Japan, there was a series of games called Mario Artists, which were technically sequels to Mario Paint. And there was I think 4 or 5 different Mario Artist games that came out. And all of them had different features. You had the 3D graphics, and I love the original Mario Paint. I think it was really revolutionary for a game. You had the mouse, of course. You had the mini games. The one that just keeps coming back to me is the Fly Swatter mini game in Mario Paint. Love that. I love that you can make movies. And I just think with today's technology, I think it'd be really cool to see Mario Paint come out on the Switch. And I think it'd be really cool if you could draw on the screen. That would be really cool. I think there's a lot of cool movies and things that you could do with Mario Paint, and then you can share it online with other people and share your creations, something that you could not do back in the original Mario Paint. I would love to see Nintendo do another Mario Paint game. And with today's technology, I think it would look incredible. So that would be number 5 on my list. Number 4 on my list is a classic fighter by Sega, Virtua Fighter. The original one came out in 1983 in the arcades. Really revolutionary for the fighting series of games. It was the first 3D style fighting game, and it would spin off other classic series like Tekken and Soul Calibur and Dead or Alive, and there's a ton of that you can name that were inspired by Virtua Fighter, right? And there were totally 5 Virtua Fighter games in the series released, the last one being Virtua Fighter 5, and that was released on the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, that came out in 2006. So it's been, 15 years since we've seen a Virtua Fighter. And I mentioned before, I'm a big fan of VR, and I think the next evolutionary step for Virtua Fighter, because Sega's always been kind of ahead of the curve, is if they could do like a VR fighting game with Virtua Fighter where you're playing first person as a guy and you're playing against other people online in first person. That would be amazing. Virtua Fighter 6. So you heard it here first. If that ever happens, Sega stole the idea from me. No, I'm just joking, but that would be amazing to see a VR fighting game. And I think Virtua Fighter would be a great franchise to start that. Number 3, we're getting to the top 3. Oh, this is tough. So number 3 on my list is Wave Race by Nintendo. Now, the original Wave Race game, there's 3 of them that came out in the series, right? The first one came out, and actually, a lot of people think the N64 version, right? Because that was probably the most popular one. But the first one came out was actually for the original Game Boy. It was a top-down racer. It came out in 1992, so 4 years earlier. And the last one that came out was Blue Storm that came out for the GameCube. But that came out in 2001. It's been some time. It's been too long. I mean, it's been 20 years since we've seen a Wave Race. And there's actually speculations that Nintendo's working on a new Wave Race for the Switch. And I hope that's the case because The first one, or I guess the one I first started playing was one for the N64, and the graphics were amazing. It was like one of the early launch games for N64, right? And the wave dynamics and just blown away. It's a really unique racing game because you have the waves to worry about, and the engine there was really cool. So I'd love to see a new wave race. I think graphically it would look amazing on the Switch. And if you could play online, it would be even really cool. Create your own tracks or your own courses. That'd be really cool as well. So that would be number 3 on my list, Wave Race. Number 2 is another racer by Sega, Outrun. I mean, this is a classic, probably one of the most iconic racers by Sega. First one came out in the arcade in 1986. There's been a lot of different versions of Outrun. You have Outrunners, you have Outrun 2019, which is like futuristic cars and all that cool stuff. But the last one was in 2009. It came out for the PlayStation 3, 360. That was Outrun Arcade. Really cool game. What I love about the Outrun series of racing games is you have like choose your own path, and it's you against obviously the racers, but you against the clock. And there's different ways you can do the course, so you can go certain ways, and just the replay value is really cool. The music's always been really cool. So I think that's probably one of my favorites, but I would say my most favorite Outrun is Outrun 2006. Came out for the PSP. If you have a PSP, check out 2006 Outrun Coast to Coast. It's a great racing game, a lot of fun. And so it's been some time. We're talking about, 12 years since the last Outrun game. Sega, bring it back, please. Number 1 on my list, drum roll. Number 1 on my list would be the F-Zero series, right? First one came out in 1990 for the Super Nintendo. This was graphically, it was amazing. Used mode 7 graphics really well. This is if you haven't played F-Zero series at all, any of them, they're really high intense games. It's you against obviously other racers. You don't have any weapons. Really, you have a speed boost, but that's really about it. So there's no other weapons really you have to worry about. You have jumps, and there's intense jumps, and this game is really challenging, but the music is great. There were a handful of games that came out for the Game Boy Advance. The last one would be, I believe, Legend, which was it was a great game. There was a story mode in that for the GBA. Of course, you can't talk about F-Zero without mentioning the arcade, which was F-Zero AX, which is awesome. I think there was only about 20 of them in the States that came out. One of them was Circus in Vegas right now. And that's a really fun one because what you could do is you could take the F-Zero GX and take your memory card, plug in the arcade, and continue it. And it's just kind of where you could interchange it, which was pretty awesome. And it looks incredible and had motion controls. It was really cool. But the last one, there was various F-Zeros, right? F-Zero also came out for the N64 disk drive. And there was expansion for the N64, and you can actually create your own courses, which is really cool. And the last F-Zero that actually came out was called F-Zero Climax. Only came out in Japan, and that one also came out, I believe, for the Game Boy Advance. And you could also create your own courses and tracks on that. But that was, 17, 18 years ago. So it's been a long time since we've seen F-Zero hit the market. I'd love to see a new F-Zero. I'd love to see, I think the track editor is a really cool thing. If you could do kind of what you did with Mario Maker and have people create their own tracks, so you can share those tracks online and have people race different tracks, that would be super, super cool. So that's my number 1, my top 10 game series I'd like to come back and be F-Zero. Thanks guys for watching. I really appreciate you guys taking a moment to watch my video. Thank you as always for subscribing, leaving a comment below. Let me know what games you would like to see come back. What series would you like to see? I always read the comments. We'll see you guys soon. Take care. And of course, game on.